America woke up to terror on New Year's Day, a chilling reminder of the ever-present ISIS threat. The unthinkable unfolded in New Orleans and Las Vegas, two devastating attacks that have shattered the illusion of safety in the heart of the United States. From a deadly truck rampage on Bourbon Street to a fiery explosion outside the Trump Hotel, the chilling echoes of extremism have returned. Let's first tell you about the bloody trail in New Orleans. At 3:15 a.m. in Bourbon Street, a vibrant hub of New Year celebrations turned into a massacre site. A former U.S. Army Staff Sergeant, Shamsuddin Jabbar, allegedly self-radicalized by ISIS propaganda, plowed a rented pickup truck into a crowd of revelers, and the chaos didn't stop there. Gunfire erupted as terrified people scrambled to safety. This horrifying attack claimed 15 lives and left 30 injured, as confirmed by the FBI. The rented truck, which in fact carried an ISIS flag, weapons and explosives, which Jabbar had in fact earlier posted videos of, vowing allegiance to ISIS and expressing a desire to kill. Now, some reports suggest that he planned to murder his family before the attack, highlighting the extent of his radicalization. The FBI has classified this as an act of terror, yet it raises pressing questions. How did a man with a history of military service and apparent radicalization escape scrutiny? Here's an old video of Jabbar that's doing the rounds on social media platforms.
I'm Shamsuddin Jabbar, property manager with Blue Meadow Properties and team lead at the Midas Group at Core Realty. I just want to say hello and let you know a little bit about me. So I'm born and raised in Beaumont, Texas, and now live in Houston. And I've been here all my life, with the exception of traveling for the military, where I spent 10 years as a human resources specialist and IT specialist, where I learned the meaning of great service and what it means to be responsive and take everything seriously, dotting I's and crossing T's to make sure that things go off without a hitch.
Now let's decipher the Vegas connection, where a rented Tesla Cybertruck went up in flames. This happened hours after the terror attack in New Orleans. This terror Cybertruck exploded outside the Trump Hotel, killing 1 and injuring 7. The explosion, believed to involve fireworks or a bomb carried in the truck bed, has prompted investigations into potential links with the New Orleans attack. The suspect, reportedly identified as Matthew Livelsberger, a 37-year-old with a possible military background, drove the rented truck like Jabbar. His actions have put vehicle rental platforms like Turo under the scanner, raising concerns over lax checks that may facilitate terrorism.
We're tracking the explosion of a Cybertruck outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. Law enforcement and the intelligence community are investigating this as well, including whether there's any possible connection with the attack in New Orleans. Thus far, there's nothing to report on that score at this time. I directed my team to make sure every resource is made available to federal, state, and local law enforcement.
These twin terror attacks aren't isolated. From Bourbon Street's bloodbath to the explosion outside Trump Hotel, America has witnessed a new face of jihadist-inspired terrorism. The common thread? Disillusioned, radicalized ex-servicemen using their skills against their homeland. President-elect Donald Trump has been extremely critical. He's blamed open borders and democratic leadership for failing to protect Americans. His fiery rhetoric on Truth Social warned of a violent erosion of safety under the current administration. Here are more reactions on the New Orleans attack. In fact, let's take you through what the disturbing aspect is as far as this entire matter is concerned, how these lone attacks have been carried out. One thing is clear. In the New Orleans attack that was carried out was inspired by ISIS's ideology. Here's what we know about the man who seemed to have a decorated past, a U.S. Army veteran who has also served in Afghanistan. Shamsuddin Jabbar, a 42-year-old U.S. citizen, has in fact served in Afghanistan, and in fact a transition to Army Reserve was also done. Later, of course, he was of the Staff Sergeant rank, is the information coming in. He was inspired by ISIS is also what we know at the moment. Guns and IEDs have been found in the vehicle as well. The ISIS flag was also put up on the vehicle. The videos of what he really planned to do, was thinking, were posted online. He had expressed his quote-unquote desire to kill, spoke about ISIS aspirations as well. He had also discussed his divorce in some of those videos, and he planned to quote-unquote kill his family members. He worked in real estate in Houston is the information that we have, and he had described himself as a Beaumont native. He served in the military for over a decade is what we know, and is also claimed to be an HR and IT specialist. Now, these are some of the shocking aspects which have come in as far as this particular individual is concerned, with those two aspects that we're looking at. Now, this is, of course, the information that we put out just yesterday over here as far as India is concerned. India has seen the kind of scenes that we've seen play out in Sambhal, and here too, in fact, investigations and local intelligence reports have spoken about several of the residents in Sambhal who have later joined various terror groups. Sharjeel Akhtar is one of them. He's a resident of Mahmood Khan Sarai. He has been fugitive since 2012. That's as far as Sharjeel Akhtar is concerned. He's also suspected to have joined the Al-Qaeda IS. Usman, a resident of Deepa Sarai, took HUM training in Pakistan in 1999. He left India in July 2012 as well, and he is associated with Sana al-Haq at the Afghan Pak region is the information. Sana al-Haq, of course, a resident of Deepa Sarai, has in fact been a chief of the Al-Qaeda IS in 2019. Killed in a joint US-Afghanistan strike in Helmand province is what we know. Also others including Mohammad Asif and Zafar Masood, residents of Deepa Sarai, who were arrested and jailed for recruiting youth for Al-Qaeda IS as well. Now, this is, of course, the information that we have. Let's quickly take this across to our guests who are now joining us at the moment. Joining us is Major General G.D. Bakshi. Also with us is Major General Sanjay Meston. Professor Madhav Nalapat is Vice Chair of the Manipal Advanced Research Group. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. And Major General G.D. Bakshi, you were on the show yesterday. We were talking about why this is so concerning given the kind of scenes that we've seen play out in Sambhal. But by and large speaking, do you think there are some serious messages that come out from the events that have taken place in the United States, the deadly terror attacks, at least as far as India is concerned?
Look, may I remind all of our listeners that in Syria, the United States has gone gung-ho to put in power Julani, who was formerly in the Al-Qaeda, then he went to the ISIS, and then he morphed into a new group which is now supposed to be an example of democracy for the rest of the world. The Joe Biden administration, the Democratic dispensation, seem to have gone a bit crazy, a bit overboard in its support of the ISIS, in its support of the Al-Qaeda elements. And these people the chickens are coming home to roost. We have seen the display on the first day of 2025, the opening day, not one but 3 mass terror incidents with ISIS written all over them. You know, using a truck as a lethal weapon to mow down 50 people. You know, explosives with ISIS flags, ammunitions and bombs. And all to get, you know, these foreigners to come and tilt the vote banks in the United States. Open borders. This is what Donald Trump has been complaining about.
Right.
They have thrown open the gates to let the hyenas in. The hyenas they are supporting in Syria, the hyenas they supported in Iraq are coming back to roost. The ISIS is now courtesy the CIA. They have put them in charge in Syria, where such a major effort was launched to blast these people. Now take a leaf from there and connect it to what's happening in India. Once again you can see the ISIS, Al-Qaeda blueprint all over what seems to be a very, you know, run-of-the-mill riot.
Absolutely.
It's not a run-of-the-mill riot.
Let me bring in.
It is absolutely. It is absolutely. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let me quickly bring in some of the other guests as well. Professor Madhav Nalapat is also with us. Professor Nalapat, perhaps the scariest thing of what comes out of such attacks is that, especially lone wolf attacks, it just needs one person to be radicalized, and the number of Al Qaeda and other ISIS modules that we've been seeing getting busted here in India, really shows us that that is something that is very much a possibility. Of course, our agencies, our security agencies, our security forces are all extremely alert and capable. But the point is that it just takes that one individual to actually, carry out this kind of an attack. And that's the real threat that emerges when you see such incidents, unfortunate as they are emerging.
Well, the fact is that that terror attacks are a problem for several countries. We have recently seen, for example, first in the UK, then in Germany, and now in the US. Not just one, but two, and possibly even the third one in Queens could be, although it's been done through a different technique of shooting. Look, I want to say that to talk about self-radicalization, that sometimes, is trotted as an apology for failing to catch these people. There's no question of self-radicalization. There are support groups, sometimes physical, sometimes online, and these support groups nourish the strands inside an individual of hate and of violence, and finally create a combustible mixture inside the mind that leads to this kind of terror attack. Now, what is very worrisome in the case of the United States attacks are that in both cases, military veterans were involved. And that means that, frankly, very little vetting has been done internally for understanding the psychology of people, either before they join or while they're undergoing training. And the training has been very obviously done in order to facilitate this kind of situation. Now, you have situations in California, for example, where you have, people who are recruiting for the military, for the US military, by the way, not any other military. And only Chinese, ethnic Chinese are recruited by some individuals. Only, ONLY. Only people of a particular bent of mind are recruited by some other recruitment individuals. And this is what is going on. In the case of what we saw in New Orleans, the man was an HR specialist. In other words, recruiting people. An IT specialist. In other words, an algo warrior. Self-learning his algo war skills in the US military. So I just want to say that we need to ensure that online vetting is done as well, extensively, and we need to ensure that it is done in such a manner that this kind of traces and tracks will be left behind online. Will be left behind by physical or virtual contact.
Yes.
And these need to be very carefully identified. Otherwise, you're going to get a situation where, let's be honest, there will be hundreds, if not thousands, of modules like this in the United States, in India as well. And they get activated when they feel the time is right.
Absolutely.
Or when they get command.
So there is a challenge, perhaps more on the technology front, more online, where those communications take place, and they must be intercepted, as you have rightly stated there. But Major Sanjay Messin, I want you to come in on this. The very fact that both these individuals are supposed to have served in the forces, now that is something that is really going to raise eyebrows, not just there in the US, but also here in India. And what do we have in terms of mechanisms to prevent such an eventuality from taking place here?
Yeah, good evening. Both these people are army veterans, and one of them, as per the reports, has also served in Afghanistan. Now, what is surprisingly, that one of them especially has been radicalized by the ISIS in the last few years, and during his posting in Afghanistan, I feel some kind of an impact has already occurred there. And when I was posted there in the Indian embassy, I know many people there in the US Army, and especially in the ISAF, these 52 countries who are part of it. Some of them actually were getting influenced by many methods. And in fact, not only that, they were seeing a lot of loss of lives, their comrades falling. So that has also impacted them. So I would say sometimes what happens is that prolonged deployment and these kind of things, the soldiers start coming under a lot of pressures. And I think after retirement, probably retired in 2014, this guy was having domestic issues with his family also. And therefore, he started feeling, little insecure, and he was having mental problems. And therefore, for his better thing, he started looking for motivation. And that was ISIS inspired when he started going online literature on social media. So that has impacted him. Now, let me tell you, these kind of things are possible, lone wolf attacks, and these are becoming order of the day. Many countries is happening, and let's not, we have to be very cautious even in India now. The way things are going on, we have to be very, very cautious. So, firstly, both of them being army veterans, yes, it is a point of concern. And I really can't say as to how one can keep a surveillance on these people, because this can happen to anyone in the society. And a lot of radicalization is happening, online radicalization. That is what is the whole problem. And therefore, some of the solutions for our country are, firstly, intelligence is the most important aspect which we have to impact on. Next is securing our borders. General Bakshi also pointed out, Bangladesh border, Nepal border, these are Myanmar border. These borders are very porous and we cannot have people coming there. So security of borders is extremely important.
Yes.
And third point is, international collaboration. All countries today being affected by global terrorism, we have to have mechanisms for counter-terrorism.
Well, some very, very constructive measures that you've actually suggested there, Major General Sanjay Meston. Unfortunately, I'll have to interrupt there because we're completely out of time. Major General G.D. Bakshi, Major General Sanjay Meston, Professor Madhav Nalapat, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us and talking about the importance and the impact of these events, these attacks that have taken place in the United States, and what India needs to do to safeguard against such attacks happening here as well. Thanks so much for joining us indeed.